Some in-state universities are seeing enrollment growth as tuition costs continue to rise across the country. Nevada State University has seen an increase in enrollment since the pandemic. It welcomed the largest first-year class in its 24-year history last fall. The university offers one of the lowest tuition costs among four-year public institutions in the state. A spokesperson for the Financial Aid Office says it's expecting more students to rethink their college and career plans as a result of the new federal financial aid changes going into effect this upcoming academic year. This includes new borrowing limits, cuts to certain loan programs, and updated repayment plans.
I think as costs increase nationally, and the availability of financial aid decreases somewhat, that more students will decide to stay in state longer. Maybe they will delay going out of state until their graduate studies or later in their career and finish their undergraduate and associate's work here.
UNLV and UNR both reported record-breaking enrollment last year. Enrollment at College of Southern Nevada has leveled off.